We are live. We are live on the Jeff Knows Game podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited. This is going to be, I guess, one of hopefully many Prevail Over Cancer podcasts we're going to be having with clinical nutritionist and cancer coach Keith Bishop, who has become a friend of mine. Incredible knowledge base when it comes to cancer and fruits and vegetables and supplements. It's just it is a range of knowledge and his background is so beneficial to millions of people out there. So I'm so excited to be able to share his knowledge with our audience on a regular basis. Everybody that knows my story, I'm striving through cancer and not only a survivor, but I'm striving now. And it's all been through diet, supplements, nutrition. Keith's been part of my journey as well. And I'm excited. So today's edition, which is going to be our first, like I said, of many, we are going to tackle fruits and the benefits and also the questions, how fruits affect us, sugar levels, all that things like that, or glucose levels towards cancer during, after treatment, and prevailing with cancer with fruits. So welcome, Keith. How are you, buddy?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you. So, we're kind of fooling with, heat in North America, heat and virus kind of stuff going on. So, but yeah, doing great. I feel great this week.
So let's take it from the top. What fruits do you recommend during your prevailing with cancer, during your survivability with cancer, and also prevention of cancer? What are your go-to fruits? And let's start talking about the benefits of them and what are we looking in these fruits?
Mm-hmm. So typically, I think about it kind of like the color, of fruits, and so the typically the darker the colors, the more antioxidants and cyanidins and polyphenols and various different chemicals that act as antioxidants that repair our cells. And so that repair is, gosh, I'm a guy, so I think a lot of things like this. I've got 5 trailers. I have, I don't know what, 20, kind of my tractor, 20, 25, 26 tires. Okay. And so, so I'm always concentrating about tires and so, but if I get a little tiny hole in that tire, I've got to take it to the shop and they've got to repair it. And so they take it apart and they plug it, with a little, plug, another piece of rubber type thing, and they put in there and then they air it back up. And so they donated an electron to that tire and repaired that tire. And that plug will do probably better than the rest of the tire, typically, if they did a good job. So fruits and vegetables, provide antioxidants that repair our cells, our DNA, and kind of it just helps in the mitochondria and just helps the processes to do the things that they're supposed to do. And so typically the darker, maybe the better, not always the case. But I'm always trying to go for the dark fruits when I can.
So let's talk about, I didn't go the chemo route, but there are millions of people out there right now that are sitting in front of an oncologist and are given the chemo route and they're going to start their journey.
Mm-hmm.
What fruits would you recommend during that treatment process to help eliminate as many symptoms and things as possible at the same time to help strive through that process? Because it is a very taxing on your body, right?
Yes, it's so difficult. And it's comparable to surgery after surgery after surgery. Each treatment, I mean, it damages cells, fast growing cells, and that can include the mouth and the throat and the gut and everything, and hair, follicles. I mean, and so it's damaging to the body and takes time to recover. So I definitely do like, fruits, with, the chemotherapy type things. I'm not concerned about, and there's no known concerns that I've seen. And so when I say these kind of things, I read the medical journals. And so I don't always trust what a website's going to say. I want to read what that medical journal has to say. And so I'm going to go to the journal. But so when I say these things, that's where I'm coming from. But in the medical journals, there's no research showing that fruits and vegetables are a concern, even though they contain those antioxidants. So but things like high dose antioxidant supplements might be a concern. So vitamin C from an orange, 30 milligrams or something like that, maybe, definitely not a concern. A supplement with 1,000 milligrams 2 or 3 times a day while doing chemotherapy, might actually decrease the effectiveness of chemotherapy treatments. So fruits and vegetables are definitely a go-to, and timing could be important, in quantities. So there's a couple other of my favorite topics. We'll probably have to have other podcasts on those kind of things, but we have to be careful about quantities. So we're only burning so many calories an hour. And so if we have some of these fruits that we're going to talk about today, if we have a lot of that fruit and we're just sitting around, is kind of laying around, it may be too many calories, which is going to provide too much sugar, and we're going to make body fat. And then we run that potential risk about sugars. I don't like really saying feeds cancer, but provide too much energy for cancer cells to grow. So we have to be careful about quantities. And so I often will talk about my palm rule when I do my posts and things like that. So we got to be careful about quantities on some of these fruits because they have a little bit higher sugar contents. And then timings, there's many times showing that during chemotherapy, certain chemotherapies actually are more effective if a person does some intermittent fasting, and they'll eat only certain times of the day. We've talked about that before. And so, I do it all the time, every single day almost.
Yeah.
And although I'm not going through chemotherapy, but you have to be careful, about that. And so talk to your healthcare provider and double check about that. There's a lot of new research and current research currently going on evaluating timing. And so actually going without food and hitting the chemotherapy drug, hitting the cancer with a chemotherapy drug seems to have some even greater benefits.
I've actually researched that, and I mean, this is going off topic from our fruits, but I'll just throw a little tidbit in there. What I was told and what I researched was if you could fast 24 hours prior to your actual chemo and 12 hours past, what it is doing is allowing your body to starve itself enough that those cancerous cells are going to see the chemo and be literally in your body. Just imagine it's going to be attacking that chemo thinking it's food, and it'll be able to target those cells, and the chemo will hopefully destroy your cancer cells at a higher rate. I mean, that is right. What I was told with it. So there is a benefit to it if you are able to do that, right? But you're also getting into the point where you have to be able to manage your calories in between that too, because with the chemo does a lot of damage to your body. It also brings down your appetite. You don't want to be losing too much weight when you are doing chemo as well. So you just have to learn how to manage your caloric intake when you are not fasting or timely eating, as you call it.
Exactly.
There's one fruit I want to talk about is bananas. And when you are going through chemo, we'll talk about these, obviously the glucose intake and all that stuff. Right. But when you are going through chemo, when I've spoken to other individuals, lack of appetite, swallowing. Bananas are very easy to swallow. They're great in potassium. They have high magnesium. They have pectin fiber, which is incredible as well. So there are a lot of benefits to your body for immunity, for antioxidants.
Yes.
Talk about bananas during chemo, and let's talk away from chemo, the actual banana on a regular basis as either preventative or as prevailing with cancer. How would you rate a banana?
Yeah, I think bananas are definitely a good option, and I do like variety, and so I don't necessarily like to do the same thing every day, but I do like bananas. There's actually not much research showing that they, have much of an impact on chemotherapy. But definitely they're okay. There's some quick calories, and like you mentioned, easy to eat. They're convenient. Every store's got them. I do like organic if at all possible. Try to limit those chemicals that might also be a concern. So definitely, it's a great option for prevention. Once again, there's not much research on it. Basically, they just say that as a grouping of fruits, and then they add bananas into that. Definitely, bananas do not seem to increase the risk of cancer. They don't go into specifics on quantities, but that's also where I like to be careful. A big banana, I think we got to be careful about, and could just be too many calories at one time. Now, it depends on your activity level. If you're exercising, or if I'm out digging a hole out here in the pasture, I can do a whole banana. I need that probably even, to help do that task. But if we're sitting back and relaxing, that's when we have to be a little more careful about quantities. But bananas, I think, are a great option. Ton of potassium, and which most of us don't get enough of.
Yeah.
And magnesium. So I definitely we have them at the pharmacy always. We're trying to help our associates to make healthier choices.
So when you're talking about, or let's just quickly I didn't even want to talk about this as well, but when you're talking about bananas and you're talking about organic, I look at a banana as one of those fruits. If you cannot get an organic, I look at it as a banana as a better option because the skin and the coating. Would you agree with that or no?
Well, probably the outside definitely is part of the problem. Yes, definitely. And matter of fact, bananas are probably more of a cleaner, type fruit. There's EWG, I think it's the
Yeah.
Environmental Working Group. They've got the dirty dozen, clean 15, whatever they call that.
Yeah.
And I definitely, that is a better option. And so, but then, if a person financially can't afford to do organic or can't find, I mean, there's some places and some people, can't get that. That's not a rule. You don't have to go organic. The studies, are not specific for organic. Is what fights cancer. It's fruit fights cancer. Okay. So I agree with that. So if there's something that appeal that we can, take care of and get rid of, that reduces that concern, so that we don't have to worry about washing it and trying to wash that off. But definitely, that's a great option.
Now, the next fruit we're going to dive into is apples.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the rundown on apples and the benefits.
Sure. Yeah, apples are definitely one of my just go to. Gosh, it's so easy. Apples and bananas, they're at every store and easy to get. And organic ones, are plentiful. Seasons can vary, on that, and even quality of that. But I love apples. A lot of fiber. They don't really have actually a lot of antioxidants in them. So, matter of fact, go back to that light color. So the banana and the apple. So what happens when you cut those apple slices and you set them on the plate? They start turning brown pretty quick.
Yeah.
That is oxidative damage.
Interesting.
And so they don't have enough antioxidants in them to keep themselves from going bad quickly. So what do you do to keep that from turning brown? You squeeze some citrus on it.
Yeah. Lemon. Yes.
Exactly. Lemon or orange, anything, any citrus, limes, anything is going to donate electrons, repair the flesh to that fruit, to the apple and banana, so it won't turn brown as quick. Eventually, it's going to happen. It's going to run out of electrons in when we look at biochemistry and things like that. So apples, I love them. They're quick and convenient. I still want to try to push toward getting those dark colors. I post frequently about a nighttime snack, picture. We're sitting on the couch and it's just, at nighttime, a little snack. It's so easy, to do that. And
are they, when you're looking at your glucose levels, so you're spiking your glucose, it's something you want to be aware of, especially later on at night, prior to bedtime, your time limits and your time you'll eat.
Yeah.
Are apples one of their safest fruits when it comes to the spiking of the glucose levels?
Yeah. So it depends on the fiber level.
Okay.
And so, yes. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. So, whole fruit, I'm a big fan of.
Yes, the
and
skin.
there's a
Yeah.
lot more the skin, but the fiber in that banana's got that fiber and
Yeah.
pectin, and the apple's got the pectin
Yeah.
definitely. Berries got pectin, and so the pectin and fibers slow down the absorption of the glucose, so we don't get this spike.
Like,
You
yeah.
know, and but it's slower and it's not as much of a concern. Now, my eating pattern and my intermittent fasting that I do is adjusted for my relationships, and so I don't get home until after 6 o'clock at night. And so that's my time with the family. And so that's when I'm going to eat. And so we're going to have dinner and then we're going to have a snack. And so that is not necessarily the best time to have a snack, but that's part of our relationship,
Yeah.
and after so many years, it's hard to break some of those habits, I guess, but so yeah, we do have that snack at night. But also, once again, and I always try to stress, I do that palm rule on that well, I don't eat a whole gigantic apple. I don't eat a gigantic banana. Usually my wife and I are splitting an apple, or having a small apple.
What is your mindset with mixing that with a fat? And we've talked about this, like putting
Mm.
some organic,
Oh yeah.
all natural peanut butter or something, a small amount on it. Doesn't that help the absorption as well?
It could help. Yes, it could help with the absorption. So our digestive system, the stomach and gallbladder, pancreas, helps with the absorption of all those things. Stomach acid in the stomach, and the fats may actually help with the absorption of some of those nutrients.
Yeah.
Some of these polyphenols, and antioxidants are fat soluble,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it definitely could help out. I will do different nut butters
Yeah.
and use it as a dip. Sometimes hummus
Interesting.
even, and as a dip. And then I typically think of a hummus as more of a vegetable type thing, but
Yeah.
and I
Great,
but
great source of protein.
yeah, and exactly some protein. The same thing with the nut butter, some protein.
Yeah.
And now there are some people that are concerned about peanuts. Actually, peanuts are not really a nut, but they're a legume. But there's some potential concerns that, although it's not really fully founded, that peanuts should be avoided. But there are some people that are concerned about toxins and mold and things like that in peanuts. So, but I will eat some peanut butter. I love almond butter. Cashew butter is okay. But yeah, so that's definitely that's part of my often part of that nighttime snack would be something like that, or veggies with some hummus, or just
Yeah.
veggies, vegetables, or just a piece of fruit by itself.
Yeah. Very, very good. With our next one, I mean, it's probably one of the most popular fruits, and it's been in the spotlight for years now as this health benefit. It's blueberries. Let's talk
Mhm.
about blueberries as something, and we'll categorize blueberries, blackberries, and just even
Right.
raspberries all in the same bunch because I think there's so much benefits to all of those.
Yes.
Let's talk about just berries in general, and berries, especially blueberries, is to me a go-to later on night. If I want a quick snack, I'll have some frozen blueberries. It'll
Hmm.
give me. I used to be a huge ice cream guy in the past,
Hmm.
and since I was diagnosed November 23rd of 2022, I've eliminated anything processed, anything sugar. So I have not touched an ice cream since. And believe me, I crave it all the time. So my
Oh,
go-to sometimes is I'll actually
right.
get a quarter cup of organic Greek yogurt, and I'll get some frozen blueberries, and I'll actually put them in a hand blender and just beat them
Hmm.
really good so it gets nice and thick. Put it back
Yeah.
in the freezer for about
Oh,
10 minutes and take it out, and it becomes almost like a frozen yogurt.
yeah.
And so let's talk about blueberries or blackberries, raspberries in general, the benefits. Everybody knows they're antioxidants, but let's talk about the other benefits to it
Right.
and how could they help you prevail through cancer as well.
Yeah. So, well, the antioxidants, in that the polyphenols and all those things that repair cells and things like that. Once again, these are darker antioxidants. I mean, these are darker fruits typically, and they
Yeah,
contain a
let
ton of.
let's I apologize. I want to drive back because there's something that was playing in the back of my head and I wanted to ask you before and it slipped my
Yeah.
mind.
Uh,
When you talk about, let's go back quickly for 2 seconds to apples.
okay.
As a kid growing up, I was always and under that impression a green apple, because you always think green is healthier than a red apple. Is
Oh,
there,
okay.
is it, that is, I don't know why, because you always associate green with health and veggies. There's no science behind that. A green apple that has more acidity to it or anything like that. It just, an apple in general, you still want to stick to a darker apple, even.
Well, the color of the that little bit of the skin on the apple, definitely has some great nutrients in it,
Okay.
and that might have more antioxidants than the lighter colored skin.
Okay.
And so in storage, typically a red apple is typically is going to last longer on the shelf.
Yeah.
It has a little bit more antioxidants in it.
And
So
when I find organic apples in the grocery store, they're always red apples. I never have seen an organic green apple any of the grocery stores near me for some reason. I don't know why, but they're always red apples, and they're always usually smaller. And they do, for some reason, you put them in the fridge, they last.
right. Yeah,
Which is
they do good. And once that's what's so nice is that they last a long time
yeah,
on that. So and I had another thought too about the bananas before we
yeah,
go. You mentioned about freezing the blueberries.
yeah.
My wife, she loves to take banana slices and she freezes those banana slices, and then
Interesting.
she'll take out like one piece of banana, like one bite of banana, a frozen banana, put in her mouth and let it dissolve, and I have to admit it's like ice cream.
Interesting. Interesting. I got to try that.
And yeah, so it's walk away, get one out of the freezer, put in the mouth, and walk away, and it helps break that craving for other sweets.
Yeah, I've been doing that a
Yeah,
lot. Even pomegranates. I've been freezing a lot of fruits
yeah,
just to
hmm
get that cold, especially through the summer. That cold, that satisfaction, almost like that frozen yogurt feel with a lot of these
right,
frozen fruits. Yeah, interesting.
exactly, yeah, and so seasons we like different things, and so like I love the cold, and matter of fact, for people, we going back to finances and what people can afford. I love frozen fruit
Yeah,
and even frozen vegetables. And that is a fantastic way to do it. I don't live close to grocery stores, and I mean they're not far, but it's 8 miles minimum to get to a grocery store, so it's not convenient. So we've got freezers,
yeah,
and we're stocked up, and we'll buy fresh fruit, peaches, and buy the carton, or they just
yeah,
call them
yeah, yeah.
flats. Yep. And we'll just slice those up and put a little cinnamon on them, and a little bit of fruit fresh, which is actually vitamin C,
Interesting.
and vitamin C on it, and to help keep them from turning brown, and and freeze them.
Interesting.
And so we've got those all winter long.
And it's obviously a lot. I mean, you're talking about finances. It'll be financially obviously a lot more beneficial to buy in bulk, and if you do have the capability of freezing it and in the spacing to freeze it as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So trying to get you that little chest freezer or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, we do
And
that. We have two of those actually
yeah,
at our house.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
So
yeah,
let's get back to blueberries.
yeah.
We jumped off
Okay.
topic
Sorry.
there, or berries in general. Let's talk about those.
Yeah. So berries have got that dark color, a ton of nutrients in them, and they're also kind of like a lower carbohydrate, the lower sugars typically,
Yeah,
and so I love them. The only ones I'm a little bit concerned about are typically strawberries, the way they're grown and the chemicals used, and so they're kind of in that dirty dozen type of a thing,
they've
and so
been they've been number one for a couple of years now.
yeah, exactly. And if you've ever seen how they really grow them, you understand, with that. And so that's a little bit more concerning. And once again, if you can get organic, that's great. But so we have to be careful about those. But berries are like top of my list. I would eat, and I'd say variety. I like to change out some. I like to eat, one thing one day, another day, another day, because I've seen several clients that they develop a food sensitivity because they eat the same thing every day. That's the
What
only reason
is there
why.
is there with berries, and we're talking. We could always go back to the studies. I'm assuming there are plenty of studies to see the benefits of berries to cancer.
Yes, ton of studies. Yes.
And when you're looking at that, is that as prevailing, preventative, and also during the process of, if people are, like we talked about before, going through the whole chemo process, there's benefits through the whole process, right? Because the antioxidant benefits to your body, keeping your immune system strong.
Right. Yes. And so there's benefits during the chemotherapy, but it's not as well studied.
Yeah.
And so there's only a few studies about fruit, and or vegetables during chemotherapy, and a few studies about, or maybe a study or two about even mortality, about survival after cancer, with fruit and vegetables. There's a few studies about that. I always kind of look at that. That's another my search term going through the medical journals. And so there's not a whole lot of research during chemotherapy about the benefits of that,
Okay.
except it's just kind of like accepted that it's just accepted because there's no known issues with it, but it's
Yeah.
not well. It's sad to say it's not well studied yet.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, I mean, we could talk about that on another podcast altogether, is the funding for studies like that. There's not much funding
Right.
out there, because there's be more funding for the actual research on medication
Right.
or chemos and stuff like that. But there's never ever benefits, or not even say benefits. There's never ever true funding towards studying of the benefits of fruits and vegetables and natural fruits and foods in general to prevail and live a cancer-free life. Right? That's the problem, right?
That's
But
correct. Yeah,
so
it's financially driven. So drug companies are willing to spend billions of dollars to come up with a new drug. But okay, drugs come from natural products. Okay, so seeds in fruits and vegetables, but seeds have some chemicals in them that have anti-cancer benefits. Chemotherapy drugs extracts from natural products. So that's actually some of this early research that we see. They're actually looking at, okay, this particular seed it's called medicinal chemistry. I hated that course when I was in pharmacy school. It was horrible. I hated it. But now I'm looking at it. I go, oh yeah, Journal of Medicinal Chemistry. Oh look, they're studying this herb. Why does this herb have cancer benefits? And they're isolating 20 or 30 different chemicals out of that leaf. And now they're trying to come up with a, a, a synthetic version of that. They'll change the chemistry just a tiny bit, one molecule on that drug. And now they're making a drug. Now they get a patent on the process of making it and a synthetic drug.
yeah, which
So
is
actually, a lot of the research we see going on is kind of like underlying. Some of it is funded by drug companies because they're trying to figure out why does this herb, why do these foods fight cancer. So
let
it's there, but it's hard.
let's talk about grapefruit. Something that
Mm-hmm.
I don't have in my diet. Something I've actually been looking a little bit more into now. It obviously fits under that category of acidic acid kind of fruits with a lot of acidity to it. A fruit that has a lot of antioxidants to it. Let's talk about grapefruit. And is there research towards cancer with grapefruits?
Yes, with grapefruit and citrus, there's definitely some anti-cancer benefits with it. But grapefruit is a little bit different than most in that there's a chemicals in it that actually may inhibit some liver function
Interesting.
and actually can make some drugs become more toxic or drug levels become higher in the body. So, matter of fact, even estrogens. So, many years ago, my wife, she's working for a doctor's office, and they heard that if you took grapefruit while taking an estrogen pill, it actually increased your estrogen levels. And
Interesting.
so they were actually telling patients, "Oh, you still got a hot flash? Eat some grapefruit," type of a thing, because it actually inhibits some metabolism of functions and enzymes in the liver. Well-known documented fact about certain drugs. So, but grapefruit, other than that, I mean, it's definitely a great option. And I love grapefruit and other citrus. There's one exception though, and actually it has to do with Caucasians and timing of the year for grapefruit and citrus, and that is um, it. There's several studies showing that citrus fruits increase the risk of skin cancers and in Caucasians.
Interesting.
And so now we
When you
think
saying time of year, explain that.
like summertime.
Interesting.
Okay. And so they're trying to figure this out, and I don't have the whole answer on it, but enough to where I'm not doing oranges, grapefruit this time of year. But also, so think about Caucasians are typically like North American, I mean North European.
Yeah.
Okay, did they have citrus growing there? Probably not for thousands of years. And so, but also they didn't have much sunshine either. That's why Caucasians are lighter color skin, because they're trying to maximize the sunshine exposure. And now we've spread throughout the globe, and Caucasians are eating some foods, including citrus, and there's a chemical in the citrus that increases the risk of skin cancers.
And
So,
when did these studies come out? How long ago?
within the past 10 years.
Yeah, that's the first time I'm actually hearing that, which is very,
I know
very interesting.
I'm always sharing things with you. It's like, you're going, what?
No, I
Um,
mean, that's just, it's
yeah,
I mean, your reality, you think of, I mean, it's information overload, especially somebody that's,
sure.
I'm going to talk from my experience. When I got diagnosed with cancer, I went on information binge from November 23rd. I got diagnosed. November 24th on, I was, God, within a span, I had audio read 6 books. I had researched and researched and researched and dove into the dark hole of the web, where it's not always the greatest thing to do when you first get cancer,
Hmm.
because it's information overload and you're reading a lot of, you really have to separate these sites, because a lot of these websites are trying to sell you something. So you
Yes.
have to build the information on your own, and you got to figure out what's right for your type of cancer, what you're
Yes.
going through. So it was a very long, but a very quick. What I mean long was, it was so much information, but it was very quick because I kept indulging as much information as I possibly could to learn as much as I could about my type of cancer, which was a colorectal cancer, and what foods and vegetables and we'll have, I guarantee, episodes talking about red meats and stuff like that again.
Hmm.
So just intaking all that. So fruits have become a massive part of my diet, because I am also on a keto slash Mediterranean diet. So
Hmm.
I do have a certain portion of fruits every single day,
Right.
and
I do too.
blackberries, blueberries, bananas. I don't have every day. I usually have about 3 a week. I'm just talking my own experience. We could count avocados as a fruit in there. And I know you wanted to talk about that. We're going to kind of talk about that at the end of this podcast. One that I actually talk about quite a bit, and one that I intake quite a bit, I'm actually going to have it today after lunch, is tomatoes. And
Hmm.
I want to classify tomatoes as a fruit. Let's talk about
Yeah.
tomatoes now and the benefits of tomatoes.
Yeah.
That's something you've been actually talking about on your social media for the last week and a half as well, and giving tons
Right.
of information. So let's talk about tomatoes, and then I want to jump into avocados to finish off our podcast today.
Yeah. Yeah. So tomatoes, once again, dark colored fruit, all kinds of nutrients, not just lycopene. That's the one that we has been probably the best studied,
Yeah.
and for many years, and for men with prostate cancer, but actually in other types of cancers, lycopene is one of those dark color nutrients in the tomatoes.
Yeah.
And so, I love tomatoes. This lycopene, is available and is readily absorbed, whether you eat it, raw, or if you, do it in a tomato sauce. Actually, cooking the tomato, and actually with a little bit of oil, probably enhances the availability of the lycopene in the gut and
Interesting.
barrel.
I was going to ask you that, because you always hear when you do cook a vegetable or a fruit, you're looking at eliminating or taking some of those nutrients out. But you're saying when you do cook a tomato, especially with a fat induced into it, it could increase the benefit of it.
Of the lycopene.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is a huge
Yeah.
part of what you want to look at.
Exactly. That's what we're really kind of going
Yeah.
for. And so, matter of fact, I've done some posts, about cooking, vegetables and fruits, and so, if you cook a product, and you don't use that water that it was in, I mean, you see the colors in the waters,
Yeah.
you've lost those nutrients. And so, so
Interesting.
that's part of the problem. And cooking can break down some chemicals, definitely proven fact.
Yeah.
Cooking can, in this case, is actually breaks down the fruit a little bit better, along with a little bit of oil, and will increase the absorption of it. And also, it's like it's not like we have to eat a ton of tomatoes, but probably a slice of a tomato occasionally is okay. That probably is not going to have much impact. If we can add a lot of other fruits and vegetables, is great. But thinking that, okay, oh, I got my lycopene because I put a slice on my hamburger, that's not going to do it.
No, no.
That tomato is probably not enough antioxidants to get rid of the damaged, overcooked red meat that you just ate. So
Yeah.
but I love sliced tomatoes. We have way too many tomatoes right now in the garden, and matter of fact, my wife said we're done. And so she's tired of taking care of that, and drying them, and freezing them, and dehydrating everything. So, but they're wonderful. As a another option is they're with the worldwide distributions, growing and distributions, it's easy to get,
Yeah.
and organics are pretty easy to get also.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit concerned about well, tomatoes are acidic, and I'm concerned about canned tomatoes and the plastic liner that is inside the metal cans. The acid may kind of eat away at some of those plastics. Not well studied, on that, but it's just a little bit of a concern I have. I prefer
A jar, a glass jar. Yeah.
glass jar, because of that acidity, if at all possible. So, if you're going to buy tomato sauce or paste or something, and to make, a spaghetti, which I'm not a big fan of spaghetti itself, but acorn or spaghetti squash is great. I love that. But
Yeah.
in using tomato sauce from a glass, container, I definitely, that's okay. I'm just concerned about the long-term acidic exposure to the plastics that are in the cans, on that. But
Yeah, you could use that. I mean, that's another topic altogether. I mean, you could talk about that all together with any type of canned fruit or anything like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. The longer it's in there, and just the heat process even of making that can and putting everything in there, and the plastics,
and just, I mean, you got also, we could dive. That's another topic altogether. But I mean, you put those cans in a truck in the heat, traveling from state to state or country to country or on planes. I mean, the heat of some of these airports and stuff like that. They're on air conditioning. I mean, it's just, you're absorbing all that stuff. So yeah, that's another topic altogether. So tomatoes, great benefits. Is there a palm rule like for tomatoes? Because I do try to have at least 3 to 4 times a week. I'll have at least 2 small tomatoes after how I do my diet is I have my main course, small portions, main course, and then I have my vegetables. Like today, I have celery and 2 small tomatoes, and then I have a little bowl of blueberries, and that is kind of my lunch. And is there a concern of overdoing the tomatoes? Like also with your glucose levels and stuff like that, is there a concern to overdoing? Is there a palm rule? Like, where's your mindset with eating tomatoes?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, tomatoes and celery, and a lot of fruits, actually, and berries are actually so low in what they call a glycemic index, glycemic load. I'll just kind of say glycemic impact,
Yes.
or means the sugar, content. But tomatoes are so low that, I mean, you can eat more tomatoes than you can stand, probably, and not get, body fat from that. And body fat is risk factors for cancer, that inflammation fat. Okay. So that's where we got to be careful about it. But yeah, so tomatoes, I think are great options to add to dishes, and help decrease, I'm not concerned about quantities, at all on tomatoes.
Perfect. And our last one we had talked about prior to going on air, and you kind of threw a wrench at me with this one, is something I do every day, because I did read the benefits of colon rectum cancer, is avocados. Mm-hmm. It's one of those that is usually never on the top 12 dirty dozen, because it does have a skin. They're usually not treated with a lot of pesticides. They're a little safer. You try to buy organic when you can. Most of the time, beyond, I don't buy organic. I just wash them. in my baking soda, let them soak for about half an hour, and you're just not obviously eating the skin. So
Hmm.
let's talk about avocados and a study or a couple studies
Hmm.
of the benefits, but also the relation to what you're saying as a hormone towards, you told me, which was a
Yes.
shocker, women and breast cancer. Let's talk about that to finish off our podcast today.
Yeah. So the avocado, like most fruits, I mean, I'm a big fan of, and I still eat avocados,
Yeah.
and so I want to stress that. But there is a one study that you and I talked about is that shows that frequent avocado consumption reduces the risk of colorectal cancer and actually several other cancers, except it actually seemed to increase the risk of breast cancer and hormone, which means estrogen positive, ER positive breast cancer. And so they actually did, and it's that same study showing great results for several different cancers, like reduce the risk by 20%, 30% for most cancers, except it seemed to increase the risk of breast cancer by like 20%. And so, well, why is that? And so they actually went back and reviewed some data from another healthcare provider, nurses study, and they found same type of thing.
And these are
And
studies for, let's talk about quantity of individuals in these studies. Is it
yes,
1,000? Is it 5,000? Like how many people when they
yeah,
call it a study?
yeah. In this case, these are like tens of thousands,
So they're legit studies.
legit studies. Yes, these are legit medical studies. And matter of fact, they were really like shocked about this,
Yeah.
and it showed up because it always shows negative concerns, but avocados haven't been well studied. And so,
Which
like I
is
went
which
to,
is interesting because it's in the global world, it's one of those foods that last 5 to 10 years has been promoted as this healthy food. It's just the top of the line. You go to a restaurant, even a fast food joint, they're like, where you could put avocado spread on your thing, and all of a sudden it's healthy. And
that's
and you
right.
see that, right? It's advertised as this healthy food, right? And
Yes.
and it has so many, it does have so many benefits, the fat intake, the I mean, it has so many benefits to it.
Oh yeah.
So these studies are something that if you are a female and have, even a male that has some type of hereditary connection to breast cancer,
Yes.
it's something to look into and kind of be more aware of.
Correct. And so, like for me, my family history of prostate cancer. Now, prostate cancer is a hormone-driven cancer.
So is this in the same field as a breast cancer?
Yes,
Okay.
we typically yes,
Okay.
and in most cases. But now that same study didn't find a concern for men in prostate cancer.
Interesting.
It was only in women.
Yeah.
And so, and now, and then there's some other studies. There's okay, well, why is this happening? So there's another study showing that it has some avocados actually have some estrogenic type properties, and they can even impact tamoxifen, which is a drug that's used to help prevent breast cancer. It's used for decades now, and it can actually impact that. And but it seems to have some estrogen type properties. But actually, it kind of goes back into the gut. So actually, the bacteria, you know, digests the good bacteria, bad bacteria, digest the fiber and the nutrients from our food, including the avocados. And there may be a genetic issue for certain women that it actually increases the production of they know it increases the production of estrone, which is one of three major estrogens. There's estrone, estradiol, and estriol are three main estrogens. There's actually dozens of others after
Yeah.
that, and but it seems to increase estrone. Well, high levels of estrone, attaching to a cancer cell can kind of feed that. So that's what we're trying to do with tamoxifen and other estrogen blocker drugs is we're trying to keep that estrogen from attaching to the cell and helping it to grow. So this is actually kind of like some new information, and we there's a lot we don't know, but to the point now that I'm telling my clients with a history of breast cancer that I don't recommend it. As a matter of fact, there's going to be, you know, um, there's going to be a ton of people not happy with me saying this. I mean, about, avocados, because there's a whole market, and
a huge market on the health side of it.
I mean, whole market down in South America, production. And so there's going to be some major pushback on that. But what we need are more studies. And so therefore, one of my main things about, like I recommend the palm rule, but we have to be careful about quantities and frequency. So I still do have avocados. I will eat some avocados. I don't eat them every day, and because of my history, and same thing, my wife, her father died of prostate cancer, and she's had some mammograms that are like really concerning. So we change our food and our supplement program. And by the time she goes in for that different type of a mammogram, that spot's gone. And so she's had so there's a relationship between prostate cancer and breast cancer, and breast cancer and prostate cancer. So therefore, we will have an avocado, but with our history of hormone-driven cancers, we're not going to do it every day.
Perfect.
But other cancers, it's not showing up as concern. So
and there is, like you said, studies towards rectum, colon cancer, other cancers that are showing a 20-30% benefit. So those are all things to look at. And like I said, as a striving through cancer, past cancer, as a cancer-free survivor now, avocados are part of my diet. Maybe I will start limiting them to maybe 2 to 3 times a week instead of every day, but they are still a part. Yeah, they start out and everything in variety,
and
moderation. And my mindset is, if it's naturally from the earth or through an animal source, as long as it's not processed in a factory, you're doing some good benefit to yourself, especially if you could have it organic when we're eliminating the pesticides and all that. This has been an information-packed first edition of Prevail Over Cancer podcast on the Jeff Knows Inc. show, and I'm excited to do this on a regular basis. And we're going to give our audience a ton of information on a regular basis that they could intake and do their own research on top of it. At the same time, I want my co-host here to give praise, and I want anybody. We're going to put on all our show notes, all the information to get a hold of Keith. And if you are going through the process of cancer, if you've been just diagnosed with cancer, or you have a history of cancer in your family and you want to live as much of a preventative life as possible, Keith is an incredible resource. The knowledge base is incredible. I mean, we're just getting a little glimpse of it here, and we're going to put all the show notes information to get a hold of Keith, and he could drastically help you strive a cancer-free life through diet, through supplements, and if you are going that route through chemo, he could really help you in the process of helping those moments to strive through those and come above those in the best way possible. So I want to thank you, and we're going to have you on again. And all information will be on the show notes. And this will be out very shortly. So I'm super excited. Thank you so much, Keith.
Okay, thank you.